Government is not reason. Government is not eloquence. Government is force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Good evening, everyone. My name is still Daniel Hapney, and this is The Real Story. Tonight I've got some news for you. I've got some different things. I've got a lot of vocal inflections that I want to use. I've got some clips I want you to see so that maybe you too can put the puzzle together. You know, that, I want to say like a spatial visualization. If you got enough of these pieces, you know, maybe you can see the back side of my hand, the front side of my hand, and by the time we're done, you'll have figured out that's a hand. And no, it wasn't in that, I was going to say the ad for the watches, but that's a whole other thing. I really like Zoolander. All right, here we go. Let's see. We'll do some news for you, at least some thoughts, and you tell me what you think. Maybe you can write into the show. We have some people that like to write into the show, and I say let's get more, right? So with some more right and some left, we're going to go over some news, a little bit of news for you this week, which I thought was very interesting, and also some that you might find alarming or scary. So if you like alarming, scary things, hang on, because they'll be towards the end of the thing. It's kind of like when you watch the news. They always keep the top story for the end. It's not that it's a top story. To me, it's a wake-up story, but a lot of times it has to do with waking up. So what do we have for you? Well, gosh, for news this week, we'll start off with, hey, do you remember those missing nukes? That's right. Do you remember that the United States government, the Air Force, flew from Minot Air Force Base down to like Louisiana, and hey, what happened? We didn't even know. What's with the nukes? Well, it turns out some of those people involved, they're all dying mysterious deaths. Now remember, it was that CFI guy, Zbigniew Brzezinski, I think, who gave the speech, who talked about 5 cities in the United States, you know, possibly being nuked. I believe he included Chicago, maybe like San Francisco. You should look that up. But why that's important is this missing nuke thing, and now all of a sudden the people are dropping off. The people that were the pilots and the ground handler crew and the security people, they're all kind of having accidents. A lot like your what do you want to say, biochemists, or your, who are the people that work on viruses and stuff, you know? They started dropping off too. I think there's been like 50 of them around the world. And why that's interesting is for later in the story. But yeah, I just want to remind you that, yeah, we did have a while ago those missing nuclear weapons. Yeah, and you know, you can't just do that. It takes like 15 signatures to move a nuke. You can't just, you know, oops, I forgot where I put my nukes. And these were cruise missiles. Yeah. So remember things like false flag terrorism. That's where an act of terrorism comes, and they blame it on somebody else. This is what the CIA is good at. So anyway, just, yeah, the missing nukes, you should remember that. Why? Because now people are dying, and they're dying mysterious deaths, but they were the ones involved in that Minot base and stuff. Yeah. All within 7 days in accidents. Kind of weird stuff. But yeah, a little bit of news just to remind you what's been happening. What else we have for you? Oh, I like this one. Montana, what a good state, okay, has it right on the Second Amendment. We now have a new Attorney General, Holder. You know, the guy who was kind of involved in covering up that Oklahoma City bombing? Yeah, what happened to those 2 guys in the van that they got video of leaving the van, but we didn't go looking for them? We blamed it on McVeigh and that other guy, you know? Meanwhile, the guy that they catch, he's, driving a bright yellow car, and he says, you know, they got to me, he was under psychiatric care. I mean, come on, folks. Do you buy the whole Oklahoma City thing? Kind of interesting, but who was the Attorney General or Assistant at the time? Wasn't that Eric Holder? Who was writing for, during the, let's see, what's the case in, the case with the DC gun ban or whatever, who was writing for the government that all guns should be outlawed and banned and stuff? Attorney General Holder, you knew Attorney General. Yeah, so you've got all these crooks in Washington, District of Criminals, okay, DC, and you got a new Attorney General, and he writes about gun bans, and now Obama comes in, and Obama says what? Well, I probably want reasonable gun bans. Well, the thing that's interesting is, up in Montana, they said, you know, we affirm the Second Amendment, and we're not going for this. But I think it's interesting, as President Obama had indicated during his campaign, there are just a few gun-related changes we would like to make, and among them would be to reinstate the ban and sale of assault weapons. Doesn't that sound tough? Assault weapons? If you assault anybody with a weapon, is that an assault weapon? Geez, I've noticed on WBZ here, the local news station, that while I was driving, what did I hear? I heard a story about people being shot. 3 people were shot, and the interesting part of the story was they said they were shot with a semi-automatic weapon. Now, when you listen to stories where people are shot, do they tell you it's a single-action revolver? Do they say it's a double-action revolver? Do they say it's an automatic revolver? Do they say it's a pump shotgun? Do they ever say those people were shot with a lever-action rifle? Since when have you heard about the mechanism, okay, that the machine, because a gun, a rifle, any of that stuff is just a machine. Isn't it interesting, though, that all of a sudden they're planting in our brains, through conditioning and programming, the fact that it was a semi-automatic. Oh, they were killed by a semi-automatic. Because why? Because Holder, the new Attorney General, there's a bill they're going to put forth, and we want to ban all, or just the ones our Attorney General says. Folks, let's remind you what the Second Amendment's about. It's about keeping tyrannical governments at bay. You know, when the people fear the government, they call it tyranny. And when the government fears the people, they call it liberty. And just remember, tyranny comes to your door. It's usually wearing a uniform. Go through history and find out if I lie. So anyway, I thought this was interesting because Montana, the state, said, you know what, we're going to keep our things. And they, oh, well, we'd like to get the gun show loophole. Do you know what they call the gun show loophole? That's where a private citizen can sell another private citizen a firearm. And by cutting that out, now all of a sudden, if your neighbor, who may be a legal person, you know, with a license to carry, and your other neighbor, who may be a legal person licensed to carry, they won't be able to sell each other their guns, if and so they choose. How about a father to a son, that whole thing, you know? Gee, what's the federal government really planning and doing? We'll get into that further. I like state governments. Federal government I'm not too big on right now, especially when you get crooks, the District of Criminals. Yeah, well, we've caught them before. So anyway, some other news. We're going to cover the news things. That's right. The Obama administration just released some of Bush's memos, especially the legal ones. And I thought it was interesting because I've got, let's see, Bush lawyers approved constitution-free domestic military ops. That's what the documents show. I thought that was interesting. You might find it interesting. Here's a little quote. We do not think a military commander carrying out a raid on a terrorist cell would be required to demonstrate probable cause. Oh, that's right. We have a constitution that requires that, huh? Or obtain a warrant. Oh, gee, what countries don't use warrants? Okay. The Office of Legal Counsel memo, you know, it says, and you can get the PDFs, by the way. You can get them right from the government. We think that a better view is that the Fourth Amendment does not apply to domestic military operations. Well, folks, let's see. In Arcadia, Iowa, they're going to have gun confiscation drills where they use the U.S. military and stuff, or the, in this case, the National Guard. Yeah, well, let's read that part again. We think that the better view is that the Fourth Amendment does not apply to domestic military operations. Designed to deter and prevent future terrorist attacks. Who sold us the terrorists? Was it the guy who always told you the truth? Was it the people in your media who said weapons of mass destruction? That this person's a threat or that country's a threat? Or that, by the way, all the 9/11 stuff where they didn't investigate it? So hold on. I said 9/11. Okay, since I said 9/11, here's a clip, and it's a clip of the Pentagon being hit. And remember, they only show you 5 frames. 5. There are 80 cameras around the Pentagon. Outside, the Department of Transportation has the highway that has the picture in it, but the FBI confiscates every bit of video, and they show you 5 frames. So here are the 5 frames again. Wow, thought you were going to see 6 frames, huh? Maybe 7? Do you know anything about video? Do you realize there are 2 fields in every frame, and they're interlaced for NTSC or whatever, the national television standard and stuff, but they only show you 5 frames. 80 cameras are taking that picture, but they show you 5 frames. They confiscate all the other video, and they show you 5 frames. Are you figuring out maybe they lied to you about 9/11, like they lied to you about warrantless wiretapping, like they lied to you about weapons of mass destruction, like they lied to you about secret prisons, like they lied to you about torture? Are you figuring this out yet, viewers? Because if you're not, I've got another question for you. How come you only got to see 5 frames? Yeah, that sounds open and honest. Okay, that's a good thing. So anyway, that was because we mentioned 9/11. That's my 9/11 thing of the week. Remember, the Pentagon, you got 5 frames. And you believed them. All right, anyway, this is from the American Civil Liberties Union. We're back to the, back to the memos and stuff. Remember John Yoo, the one who says you can torture people, you can torture children in front of their parents? Yeah, he was a counsel, that's right. He was a legal counsel, so all you lawyers should be proud of him, right? A member of the, what, bar? So anyway, here's the American Civil Liberties Union attorney Melissa Goodman. This is what she says, about the memos and why they're so disturbing. She says, the fact that we had an OLC in business of stretching the law to create an outcome and create legal cover for illegal activities is a dangerous thing. There is no serious question that the Fourth Amendment applies to the U.S. government officials acting on U.S. soil. Well, thanks for her. At least, maybe there's one person there that understands that the Fourth Amendment, actually means something. Because remember, the next time when you're asked to show your papers, try showing them a Constitution. Because if you watch the previous shows, you'll remember that the FBI is training our local law enforcement that people that have a Constitution or talk about the Constitution or defend the Constitution, that they are would-be terrorists.